The morning Daniel Hayes walked into that park, he wasn't looking for anything, or anyone. He had grown used to the silence of his apartment, the empty chair across the dining table, and the cold coffee that no one reminded him to finish. It had been 3 years since he ended things with Claire, the woman he once thought he'd marry. 3 years since he decided relationships were not worth the pain, not worth the fear of losing someone again. But life has a strange way of leading you back to love, just not in the form you expect. That day, autumn leaves danced in the cool breeze as Daniel walked through the park, hands in the pockets of his gray coat. The world felt distant, muted. He was there only to escape the walls of loneliness pressing against his chest. He didn't know that a few steps ahead, sitting on a park bench, was the moment that would change his life forever. A small boy with curly hair clutching a worn-out teddy bear, and a woman with tired eyes watching the world drift by. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of unexpected connections, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us how love can find us when we least expect it. The little boy's name was Noah. He couldn't have been more than 5, dressed in a bright blue hoodie and little sneakers that looked slightly too big. His mother, Emily Carter, sat behind him on the bench, her hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee that had long gone cold. She looked like someone who had known struggle but refused to give up. Daniel noticed her only briefly before the sound of a small voice caught his attention. "Sir, can you help me?" the boy asked, holding up the teddy bear whose arm was barely hanging on by a thread. Daniel stopped. For a moment he hesitated. He wasn't used to talking to kids, but something about the boy's innocent eyes made him kneel down. "Looks like your bear's had quite a day," he said softly, taking the toy in his hand. He reached into his pocket, found a spare thread he used for his own coat buttons, and started fixing it right there on the park pathway. Noah watched closely, his wide eyes following every movement. When Daniel handed the teddy bear back, Noah smiled in a way that made the cold morning feel warm. Emily looked up from the bench, surprised by the kindness of a stranger. She mouthed a quiet "thank you," and Daniel gave a small nod before walking away. He didn't expect to see them again, but fate had other plans. A week later, Daniel found himself in the same park. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was something deeper. And there they were again, Emily and Noah, sitting on the same bench. This time, Noah ran up to him with excitement. "Hey, it's you, Teddy's friend," he said, holding up the mended toy proudly. Daniel chuckled, feeling something stir inside him, a lightness he hadn't felt in years. Emily smiled, a genuine smile that reached her tired eyes. They talked for a while. She told him she was a single mom, raising Noah alone since her husband passed away 2 years ago in a car accident. She worked 2 jobs, barely making ends meet, but she never let Noah see her cry. Daniel listened, feeling something inside him crack open. He saw himself in her resilience, in her quiet strength. The following weeks, they kept running into each other, sometimes by chance, sometimes by choice. Daniel began bringing Noah little things, an ice cream cone, a paper airplane, a storybook. Each time, Emily would thank him politely, not wanting to accept too much, but Daniel would only smile and say, "He reminds me what happiness looks like." One chilly evening, Daniel found Noah alone on the park swing, his mother nowhere in sight. Panic flashed in his chest until he spotted Emily nearby, sitting with her head in her hands, tears falling silently. Daniel approached her carefully. She looked up, embarrassed to be seen crying. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "It's just been too much lately. Rent's due and my car broke down again. I'm trying, but..." Her voice cracked. Daniel didn't speak. He just sat beside her, offering the warmth of presence instead of words. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose, a need to be there for someone else. That night, when Noah fell asleep in Emily's arms, Daniel found himself watching them, realizing that he didn't just want to help, he wanted to belong. Days turned into weeks. Daniel started spending more time with them, taking Noah to the playground, fixing things around Emily's small apartment, cooking dinner when she came home late from work. He didn't call it love at first. It was something deeper, more grounded. It was healing. He hadn't planned to care this much, but every time Noah called him Mr. Dan, or Emily smiled softly when their eyes met, he knew something inside him was changing. One evening, as snow began to fall outside, they sat together on Emily's couch. The lights were dim, and Noah had fallen asleep with his teddy bear. Emily whispered, "You didn't have to stay this long." Daniel looked at her, his voice low. "I wanted to." For a moment, neither spoke. The world outside was silent, blanketed in white, and in that quiet, something unspoken passed between them. A shared understanding that they had both been broken once. But maybe, just maybe, they could heal together. But happiness doesn't come without fear. One morning, Daniel woke up with the old panic gnawing at him. The voice in his head whispered, "Don't do this again. Don't love someone you could lose." He started pulling away, showing up less often, answering Emily's calls with short replies. He told himself it was better this way, that they deserved someone stronger, someone who wasn't haunted by his past. Emily noticed the change but didn't chase him. She had learned the hard way that you can't force someone to stay. But Noah didn't understand. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked one day, holding his teddy bear. That question broke Daniel in a way he didn't expect. He realized that leaving wouldn't protect him. It would only repeat the same emptiness he'd been running from. That night, he stood outside Emily's door, snow still falling softly. When she opened it, surprise flickered across her face. "I thought you were done," she said quietly. Daniel took a deep breath. "I was done, with fear, with running, with keeping people out, but I'm not done with you." Or Noah. Tears filled Emily's eyes, not of sadness, but relief. She stepped aside, letting him in. And that night, as Noah ran into his arms shouting, "You came back," Daniel realized something profound. He didn't just meet a boy who needed a dad. He met a family he didn't know he was searching for. Months passed, and their bond grew stronger. Daniel helped Noah learn to ride a bike, taught him how to throw a baseball, and cheered louder than anyone at his kindergarten recital. Emily began to smile again. Not the polite kind, but the kind that lit up her whole face. On Noah's 6th birthday, Daniel surprised them both with something simple but meaningful. A small framed photo of the three of them in that same park where it all began. On the bottom, he'd written, "Family isn't who you're born with. It's who shows up and never leaves." As Emily hugged him tightly, tears glistening in her eyes, Daniel finally understood what love was. It wasn't about being ready. It was about showing up, even when you were scared. About being there, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. The park became their place. Every weekend, they'd walk the same path, Noah holding both their hands. Sometimes people would look at them and smile, sensing the unspoken story. A man who thought he couldn't love again, a woman who thought she'd never be loved again, and a little boy who unknowingly brought them together years later. Daniel would tell Noah the story of the day they met, how a teddy bear with a broken arm led him to the family that mended his heart. And every time he told it, he'd smile, because that moment, that small act of kindness, had rewritten his entire life. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There's always someone out there who needs to believe in love again. Your share might be their sign before you go. Tell us in the comments. Do you believe that sometimes the family you find by chance can become more powerful than the one you were born into? As the camera fades out, we see Daniel holding Noah's hand in that same park, Emily watching them with a smile. The autumn leaves fall gently around them, a reminder that even after seasons of loss, love can bloom again.